qualified GP driving for Uber amid chronic shortage of jobs. So I came across this headline about a week ago, and it is quite sensational that a qualified GP is now driving for Uber just because there is no work. So this is apparently a GP who qualified 2 years ago, based in the Midlands, cannot find any work. I would assume that this is a locum GP, meaning that they're self-employed. As you know, there is a new contract within the NHS called the ARRS, where basically surgeries can only employ PAs and nursing practitioners, but out of that funding, which is about 1.4 billion, they're not allowed to hire GP locums. So this GP looked at the options of working in hospital. However, the GP decided that Uber is more cost effective in terms of time, less stressful, as well as more control over his working hours. Whereas in hospital, he'll be working as an SHO, where he'll be running up and down the wards, he'll be doing night shifts, day shifts, weekends, and there's no control over his rota. He's been doing this Uber for about 2 to 3 months now, from what I've gathered. I decided to, because I was like, is this really true that there is no jobs totally in the Midlands? I mean, what are all the other GP locums doing? This seems to be one GP out of many, so that doesn't make sense. And why is a GP not taking on a salaried role? I mean, Midlands is a big area. If you imagine, London, for instance. So Midlands, you've got different places like Birmingham, Coventry, Leicester. However, it doesn't specify exactly where this GP is. But when I did a search for salaried jobs in the Midlands, I could see that there were quite a few jobs going in different parts of the Midlands. So it could be that the GP does not want to be a salaried. The GP doesn't want to work in a hospital on a temporary basis. The GP just wants to be a locum, remain self-employed, and would prefer to work for Uber than to do any of these other jobs. I just think it's a sensational headline. This is just one rare case out of many. I don't know any other colleagues working for Uber. However, there is another sensational headline where it states that unemployed GPs now turn to food banks. As I've just stated, it is difficult for GP locums to now find work within a GP surgery. However, certainly GPs must have some savings. It can't be that desperate that you're turning to food banks, there's no money at all, and you're now going to food banks begging for food. These are all sensational headlines that put general practice in a bad light. And is general practice really in crisis? I have spoken to some of my colleagues, and I know one colleague told me that he used to get so much work, like he went from 8 sessions in a week to about 2 sessions in a month. And he's ended up doing private GP work, which is remotely working online. So there is work available. I mean, there is the chance to work remotely. There is online work. There is a chance to work in out of hours. There is a chance to work as a salaried GP. There are still surgeries hiring GP locums, though not as frequently as they used to previously. However, sensational headlines like GP now working for Uber, an employed GP is turning to food banks, I just think this is choice. I don't think this is out of desperation or anything like that. Like I said, I don't know many other GPs in this position. Maybe it all depends because everyone has different circumstances. There are some GPs who come from other countries, so they haven't got that established base. Or there are some GPs who maybe do not have that family support and they have no other option. Every circumstance is different, but it is hard to imagine that a GP would rather drive for Uber than work in hospital medicine. I mean, you want to do something that you love. And in terms of driving for Uber, someone please tell me, are you really going to make more money driving for Uber than working in hospitals? Because from what I gather, in hospitals, you can work overtime and you get paid overtime rates as well. Whereas for Uber, you have to pay tax, you have to pay insurance, and I believe Uber takes a certain percentage out of your earnings as well. I don't know what it is it 8 or 12%? I'm not sure exactly. But Uber is unpredictable because there are times where you might not have customers. I remember going to Manchester and speaking to the Uber driver, and he was telling me that there are parts in Manchester that there's just no work whatsoever. And you just have to go to a different area of Manchester as an Uber driver if you want to get work. And I did have a friend who was driving for Uber a while back who lived in East London. And he also told me that Uber is so unpredictable, that there are periods where there's just no customers whatsoever. And there are periods where, you're quite busy. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. However, general practice is in crisis. And that's simply because there are doctors who are out of work. There are doctors who cannot find work. and they're being replaced by physician associates who are cheaper. However, they do need a level of supervision because there are risks involved. So if you know any other GPs who maybe are doing other jobs, whether working in supermarkets or working in McDonald's or any menial jobs rather than doing GP or doctor work, please drop some comments below.